my story to be about the most famous dog called Julie.
The most famous dog called Julie.
Oh, by the way, what's the date today?
Today is Friday, June 16th, 2023.
June 2023. Today I want my story to be about the famous dog called Julie. Or actually, no. Ghost. No, I already had that story. A famous camera.
A famous camera?
Yes.
Okay, sure. So, this is a story about something that happened probably around 30 years ago. I don't have the exact dates. But if it's a story that you'd find interesting, we can spend some time tomorrow getting more information on it, because it's a real story. It's a story about one of the most famous cameras in the whole planet. But unfortunately, it became famous for all the wrong reasons. You see, this was perhaps one of the most expensive cameras in all of human history. For it was not a simple camera, it was actually a telescope, a very big telescope. A telescope that was going to be shot into space. And that the promise was that that telescope would be able to see further into space than any other telescope that went before, and offer clues as to lots of the riddles and mysteries of the universe. So, to a lot of fanfare, but perhaps not so much enthusiasm from outside of the astronomy field, the Hubble Telescope was launched. In a roar of fire, the rockets pushed the payload up into the sky. The risk of the rockets exploding themselves was enough for people to be sweating with anticipation. But, alas, the rocket survived all the way up into orbit, and it delivered its payload. Everybody was cheering, everybody was clapping. The Hubble Telescope was now in orbit. It would be only a few more days until all the checks were done and the telescope could be aimed out into the galaxy to start taking its first pictures and revealing the mysteries from the most distant parts of the universe. Well, guess what happened to the most famous camera in the world? It was out of focus. It was ever so slightly out of focus, but enough that it rendered the whole thing basically almost useless. And that made it the most famous camera in the whole planet, the Hubble Telescope. The telescope that needed glasses. That's the craziest thing ever. Later on, they had to send another crew of astronauts to take apart some components of the Hubble Telescope in orbit, in space, and put like glasses into it to correct for the out of focus issue. And finally, after many, many years and tons of money, because it's not easy to send people into space to repair something that's floated up there while traveling at hundreds of thousands of kilometers an hour, or not hundreds of thousands, but several thousands. It's actually quite an expensive, risky, and dangerous task. But nevertheless, it was successfully completed, and finally the Hubble Telescope could deliver its promise many years after its launch. And if you shall know, now there's a new telescope called James Webb, which is the successor of the Hubble Telescope in terms of resolution and the things that it can see. And I'll tell you that story some other day, because that one's more recent. But that's the story of the most famous camera in history. The end.
Best story ever.
Good night, beginning.